All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to group coaching for Tuesday, May 6th for the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. And tonight's conversation topic is conflict management. So, when I think of conflict management, the first visual that popped into my mind was from that movie Toy Story. And I love the dinosaur in that movie, the T-Rex character, because he always runs around. I don't like confrontations. I don't like conflict. He's like this like giant dinosaur, right? It's like and I just think conflict is really a funny word that people have a lot of different reactions to. And conflict is sort of what you make it. Because in life, conflict is inevitable, but it's the growth and the opportunity through conflict that is the part that I'm going to want to focus on and talk about mostly for today, and how we can master the art of conflict both in business, whether it's with our clients or with our business partners, um, but all or our teammates, but also in life and in our personal relationships, because I think that all spills over. And these tools that we use in business, sometimes we get to practice in our personal life. So that that's where my head is at in that space. And I always also, in the beginning of these conversations, I start thinking about movies and TED Talks and books. I'm like, who talks about this topic with great authority? And there were two books that, you know, spoke to me. One is by our dear friend who, I know we talk about often, but Robert Greene with the 48 Laws of Power. Because, I mean, these are really strategic, psychological ways to teach and navigate power struggles or manipulations or control or conflict. And we have um a lot of opportunity presented in the 48 Laws of Power, for dealing with conflict. And then the other one is that book Extreme Ownership, by Jocko Willink. Willink, I think I'm saying it right. He was the U.S. Navy SEAL, and he emphasizes radical responsibility and owning every problem and every solution, and teaches, a lot of what the Navy SEALs teach about how to lead through conflict with clarity and decisiveness and discipline. And I think that is another great one in case anyone's looking for a deeper dive after this call. Those are some of the places that where my mind went. So now I'm going to share some personal stories, because I think personal stories bring this to life for all of us. And you know, I think in my personal life, that's just where my head is at right now. And I mean, this is a safe place. I'm gonna share with the group. So in my life, I feel like in my professional life, a lot of my decisions have always been driven by my head, right? And people always talk about like your head and your heart and the balance of the two. And I think I've made an active effort over the years to pay attention to my heart, but I've always ended up leading with my head. And I've been on a little bit more of a spiritual journey, and that's been building over the last few years, and it's more about listening to my heart. And so that has impacted the way I'm dealing with conflict, with or potential conflict, or the opportunities that conflict presents when I'm co-parenting with my ex-husband, or I'm talking with girls who work for me, or I'm talking with business owners that are struggling, or they're taking a break from their marketing services. Well, why are they doing that? And how can I help them? How can I lead with my heart instead of leading with my head, instead of leading with the bottom line? How can I lead with the right thing to do? And it's not a giant um change for me, because I feel like I've always done that to a certain degree, but I'm really trying to lead with my heart all the time. So um that is just something that I thought was worth sharing, kind of an intimate share with the group. So anyways, all right, now I'm gonna go. I have like some slides and some notes that I was talking, or I was like kind of prepping for today. So, and if we look at understanding the roots of conflict and where conflict begins, I like that quote. It says, conflict begins where understanding ends. Because a lot of conflict is really driven by misunderstanding. And there's different ways that we get there. right? Is it ego that led to a misunderstanding? Is it a misalignment in empathy? Is it an unmet expectation? Is there a power dynamic that um is at play here, whether it's with a client or a vendor or a manager employee or a partner? And I think I know everyone thinks, you can't assume things. But trying to find the alignment, or where did the conflict begin? Where did the misalignment start? And it's easy to think, oh, I know right where that started, that day, at that time, and that activity. But sometimes misalignment or misunderstanding can go on for days, weeks, months, years, and then you look back and you're like, I have all this resentment. It's like, well, we've been misaligned and misunderstood for so long. And trying to get back to the root of the conflict, or being able to have enough emotional, what's the thing that we've talked about before? I think I did a quiz on this at one point. Oh, I forget the term, but basically self-awareness, to say, like, this is my role in this. This is how I feel, and this is why I feel that way. So being able to kind of step back and understand, the root of the conflict. And once you do that, um, the maturity here is to respond, but don't react. You can respond to what's being put in front of you without making it a knee-jerk reaction. um you know that that's where we're not being, you know calm or clear or respectful, or we're not listening. So, you know, I'm not a yeller. I don't like to raise my voice regardless of who I'm talking to. Um, but I think it's, sometimes I like, for personally, for me, whether it's with work or it's with personal, I need to step back, and I like to make lists. I like to make notes. I like to organize my thoughts. And then that way, when I'm engaged in a dialogue with somebody, I can actually listen, because I've already done my brain dump of the things that I was thinking before. And I know that while I'm actively listening to somebody else, it's going to add more, but at least I'm able to listen to them. And I learned this tip from a therapist once, at one time. He said, there's only really three things that you need to say in any conversation. And you're welcome to borrow these. The three things are: I see it that way, which basically means you agree. I don't see it that way, which means I don't agree. Or I don't quite see what you mean, which is your way of asking for, I need more information. I need more data. So in any of these, like, tools to use in the moment, the three things are: I see it that way, I don't see it that way, or I'm not quite sure what you mean. So at the end of this call, by the way, I'm going to give a worksheet to everybody, and I'll put it on the back end of Yes. And it's different recommended phrases. And it's sort of like do's and don'ts while you're having a conflict. It's like, instead of saying this, you can say that, right? So, phrases kind of like, here's, like, this is what I hear. Or, at the beginning, is now a good time to have this conversation? Um, a couple months ago, there was this woman who was working for me, and her job was to drive the kids to their sporting events. That was her whole job. And in the middle of, like, the after school shuffle and rushing off to practice, she, like, asked me if I would buy her a car. And I was like, this is really not the right time. Like, now is not a good time to have this conversation. Had no idea that that was the agenda for this 5 minute, like, sprint from the car to getting snacks to getting uniforms and jerseys and out the door. I was like, oh my God, like, that was the beginning of the end of that employee. It did not, it did not go well. I didn't respond beautifully. And she, had another motivation. So anyways, it's fine. But asking, hey, is now a good time? I've got some things I'd like to talk to you about. Can we sit down for coffee? Can we grab lunch? I'd really like to talk to you about some things. Those words, those famous words, we need to talk. It doesn't have to be so scary, but kind of letting somebody know that there's things on your mind in advance is helpful. And so when you are, let's say, we're talking, right? We're talking about tools. Something else that our bodies react to is stress, right? And we've got our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system response, right? You've got the fight or flight response and the calm, cool, and collected response. So, how are you regulating um, your energy? And sometimes when you're engaged in a conversation for an extended amount of time, your body has been in that fight or flight stressed response for too long, and you need to take a break. You need to take a walk. You need to, remove yourself to process. Personally, like I actually do better having big conversations while I'm walking because I need the movement. And I had to learn that about myself. Like if it's just sitting down and having like a 2 hour long, big drawn out thing, like with no real agenda that just goes in a kind of a circle, like I get totally lost and disengaged. And that's disrespectful to the person I'm trying to talk to. So, kind of learn yourself, learn your boundaries, practice, and you'll get better at these things and learn the tools that work for you. I know almost every time we talk I mention the InHarmony vibroacoustic tools, but I have to say something really noteworthy happened. I've been using the InHarmony Sound Lounge vibroacoustics about 20 minutes a day every day, and the amp broke. Like it busted, burnt out. I don't know. I literally was on the like Zoom with the founder of the company. We like took the whole sound lounge apart. I'm like rewiring it. I'm like, what is going on here? This is not working. And my amp had just gotten old and worn out, and they were a great company. They listened, they replaced it. It's wonderful. But I gotta tell you, there was like a whole week and a half where I didn't have my sound lounge, and I was like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna reset my nervous system in the middle of the day? I have a routine. It's not working for me. So I just gotta, be flexible, work with the tools that you have. I found myself instead, I would just listen to their music meditations without the vibration, which is still better than nothing. And I actually did like a quick 10-minute session before this call because I thought it would center me so that I could be a more productive presenter today. So there you go. Mm. All right. As we're cruising along here, let's talk about leading through conflict. And how do you model and be a good model and a good example to other people? So, how do you keep an eye while people are watching you, right? Maybe you're in an office and you've got a conflict and there's almost like an audience, right? Or maybe you're dealing with one of your kids and the other kids are watching, or you're dealing with your partner and your kids are watching. You have an audience and you're leading and you're teaching through the way that you behave. Are you a door slammer, right? Do you storm out? Do you throw things, right? Like, what are you training and teaching the people around you? Um, I let this be an opportunity for your values to rise through the friction, and um, you know, be a good example of how to lead through conflict. You don't have to avoid it. You don't have to you know, refuse to be a part of it. But you can choose to do it in a respectful way that sets an example for those who are watching. And, you know, I've had phone conversations and in person. No, have they been in person? Yeah, I've done both for work. I'm thinking about sometimes there's been conflict, and as the owner of the company, it's my honor and it's my blessing to get to deal with operational or HR issues. But, it's also my honor and my blessing to teach the up and coming leaders and the directors how to do it in the right way. So letting them join, not secretively, but like, in full disclosure, letting them join and letting them be a fly on the wall and, purposefully. So that's important. Mm, okay. So wanted to touch on that. Um, Business partnerships is something else I thought about when I was first starting Sunday Brunch. I got some business advice that said, "Oh my God, whatever you do, don't take on a business partner. It's your first business, like don't have a partner." And I was like, "Okay, all right, I can not take a partner." And I had somebody at the time who really wanted to be my partner, and we had worked together. And I just said respectfully, like, I'm not going to do this. I had to like hold a firm line. And I'm glad that I did, because I knew in my gut that I would just be saying yes to the partnership because it's what the other party wanted. It wasn't what I wanted. I didn't think they were the right partner for the business, but I felt beholden to them because they were there at the inception. But because I held my ground respectfully, we're still friends 10 years later. And I think if we had been business partners, we would not have been friends. So picking your business partners is an art. And I think, when Jim and Rod and I started the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, I mean, Rod and I didn't know each other, but you knew Rod, or you knew Jim, and I knew Jim, and we were both were like, okay, Jim, we trust you. You've architected all of us together here. Like, we must align, there's got to be shared values here. And I gotta tell you, like, I feel like we've been very blessed with this partnership, and we've all been so good about talking about everything as it's been happening. And I'm just so blessed with these business partners. So we'll shout out to you guys on that one. One of the things I think we did really well and continue to do well is we define our roles clearly. Like, if it's something that's graphical, like the guys will write something up and I design it. Or, like Rod is really good with assigning all of the topics of what we're going to be talking about every week in our group coaching, or, some of the other written materials. And so it's like everybody's played to their strengths. And that's been really helpful, at least for me. And I'll let you speak to that, whenever you want. But just mentioning it now. So there you go. Hold on to that. Um, okay. The next thing I was talking about, or I was thinking about with this, well, it's the overlap between the personal relationships and the business. And I think I kind of touched on that a little bit, but like, as you progress through your life and your company and your friendships, you may notice, which I have noticed, like my best friends are also my business partners and vice versa. Um, and so like that line between, and my friends are my clients. So that line between personal relationships and business is overlaps a lot. So one of my very best friends of all time, she runs a travel business. I travel with her family, and our kids are friends, and she's a client. And a couple months ago, we were doing her social media, and she started deleting the content that we were putting up. And I was like, What is going on? Like, why is she deleting it?" And so then I didn't want to ask, and I don't think she wanted to ask. So then I just stopped billing her, because I thought, okay, maybe she just doesn't want to be a client anymore. And I didn't want to like have conflict. And I was like, I value the friendship more than I value the business part. Anyways, so then like 2 weeks ago, this is in real time, she's like, why haven't you been billing me? And I was like, well, because we're not doing anything for you right now. And she was like, but I have all this stuff I want you to do. And then we had a meeting where she met with the whole team, and they outlined out like the next 6 months of work. And she was just like, I was just busy with other things. Like, I didn't even notice that was going on. She was like, you should have just mentioned it. I said, well, I just wanted you to know that the friendship was more important. And she was like, that's so nice. That's so sweet. That's so you. It so aligns with your leading with your heart and all those places, things that you're doing right now. Um, but anyways, she's like, no, I want to continue. I'm like, okay, that's great too. But I need to like come at it with a place of like the balance between the personal and the business. So, and where that is, for every relationship, it is slightly different. Um, and then you've got some friends that come into your life for a season, and some friends that stay for a lifetime, right? And I think in business that's kind of part of it too. So just, having your foundation and knowing that you're leading with your values, is how I'm handling it. So um now, let's say that there was a terrible rift. Like, how do you repair and resolve something? What is the aftermath of let's say there is a bad argument, right? How, what's the goal? Is the goal to win the argument, or is the goal to win the relationship at the end of the day? And for me, I've learned that I need time and space, respectfully, post conflict, in order for my not only my nervous system to reset, but also like my my for clarity. It just takes, I don't mean like in a grudge holding way, it just takes me a little while in order to see the whole playing field and the big picture. So you know I don't ever like to rush an apology or rush a repair. Sometimes it's a week or two, or you know or three, but not too long, because you can't really let a conflict rest for years. I mean, you can, but that's not my comfort zone either. So hopefully you have enough trust built and history with a relationship that you can you know rebuild, as long as you're able to remember that you're not there to win the argument. You're there to win the relationship, if that is your goal, or whatever goal you're going to set for that moment in time. So I think um I have a oh, okay, I'll just say it. Okay, so I have this new relationship in my life, and my therapist asked me very intuitively the other day. She said, have you guys had your first argument yet? And I said, no, we have not. And she goes, all right, well, let's circle back once you guys have had your first argument, because you can really tell a lot by the way a person argues and the way that they treat you and the way that that all works. I will tell you, since then, we have had our first conflict, our first opportunity for growth. And it was wonderful. It was respectful, and it was like systematic, and it was just like the the best opportunity for growth I've ever had. I was like, when we're like better because of it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I love that I was talking on this topic at the time when I feel like this is something that I just got to practice the other day. Really great. So I want us all to remember that we don't have to fear conflict. We just need to make sure that we have the right tools. Conflict doesn't need to be the end. Conflict is often the beginning of something stronger if you're kind of, willing to work through it. And then I'm going to read to you guys some of the, what I like to call the, oh, hang on. No. All right. What I like to call the upgrade your communication, kind of like do's and don'ts. And this is the worksheet that I'm going to give everybody after, but I think it's just kind of fun. So if somebody says the bad thing is, well, you never listen to me. And then the better alternative is, oh, I don't feel heard. Can we, slow down for a second? Then here's another bad example. Well, that's not my problem. Or a better alternative is, let's figure out the best way to handle this together. Right? So just sort of having those tools, this is going to help us in our business relationships. It's going to help us with our kids, help us with our partners, um, and help us also to create good, healthy habits for ourselves. And there's one other book. Hang on, just bear with me here. And by the way, there's a list of like 10 or 20 of these. I won't read them all, but but the worksheet will have them all on there. The other book that I want to mention, and this one I actually just started. So I don't know if you guys have read this, but it's called The Language of Emotions. And what your feelings are trying to tell you. And I'm only like 30 pages in, but it talks a lot about emotions and how to, gosh, you're popular today. Um, by a lot about your emotions, how to manage them, how to work with them, and how to communicate through them. So that's really what I was thinking about today. But I would really like to talk with you guys and kind of hear your point of view on conflict management and your insights. So go ahead.
I'll jump right in, seeing as how Heidi didn't unmute before I did. First, Rachel, thanks for bringing this. And I think there's some synchronicity going on that this is the topic you ended up with, right? All these months, beforehand, and this is the one you get. it just lets us know that we're on the right track. We're doing the right thing. Um, Secondly, I will say I appreciate you so much and our professional relationship with you and Jim and I. I think we exemplify what good communication uh, can do. Have we had art? We've had, I think, stylistic disagreements. I don't think we've had conflict. Uh, Jim and I spend a lot more time, I think, brainstorming different things, but it's always something that we work together through and with, right? So even if I come at it from one angle, he comes at it from another, there's always something there. And it gets to the point where communication is so important. It's just important. And I always, I'll give you an example of, I don't even know. I haven't talked to you about this, Rachel, but I'll bring it up now. I communicated with you earlier today for some clarification. And then you responded back. And I thought, should I acknowledge that you responded back? And I thought, that's kind of unprofessional, right? I respect your time so much that I gave you a heads up. You responded. To me, it was over. It was done. But at the same point in time, I thought other people would expect another response. There are times where you get that text, and I'm on a lot of text streams or tech group texts, right? And somebody always wants to say something else that doesn't need to be said. And that efficiency expert in me is like, okay, let's end this, right? And that's something we've not communicated before, but I think my actions have communicated it, over the last several years. Anyway, you said a couple of things that I had to double star because I'm just going to repeat them. I don't even know if you said them on purpose, but you said master the art of conflict. And I don't know where you got that term, but you talk about emotional intelligence. This is the key, mastering the art of conflict. And, it goes all the way back to the Dale Carnegie. I mean, we go back further than that, but absolutely phenomenal insight on your part. Conflict begins where understanding ends. I think we probably all need to have that tattooed on our hands or something where we see it often. The other thing I'm going to add to this, two things. Number one, sometimes if the conflict, especially a business, if it's an important relationship, I'll say that any important relationship, business, personal, whatever, and you alluded to it without saying so, but sometimes we need mediation. Sometimes we need outside help. Sometimes, and it's okay to ask for that help, to seek that help. In business, we go to mediation, or we go to a trusted third-party mentor or something like that. But it's okay if we've got conflict that we're not getting resolved to our satisfaction, to look outside of ourselves and outside of that relationship. I think that's very important, and it's a very mature, grown-up thing to do. So, don't hold back. And the other thing that I wanted to throw out, and I'm going to give a quick example of this, just because it happened just this week at my other employ, and that's know your place. Know your place. And there, I'm in a weird spot because, I could go into my employer as a consultant, and I could draft a 50-page report on key performance indicators and how they could be adjusted, removed, improved, all kinds of design things that I notice at work that would improve the efficiency of the operation, and probably not just this place, but other places. But that's not my place. I took this job because I didn't want any stress, and I wanted to disengage myself from that aspect of my business life and my personality. And they had a major ordeal where some big corporate people came in this last week and really disrupted the flow of everything. And attitudes I mean, people are ready to quit. I mean, it's one of those things that I could say something, and it's not my place. I'm there as an employee, not as a consultant, and it's not my place. Some people have their own issues to work out. their own problems to work out. And it's hard for me because maybe it's a masculine trait. I don't know. I'm a fixer. I like to be a problem solver. I see things, I like to fix them. I like to offer suggestions and help. But sometimes it's not warranted and it's not necessary. And so maybe I'm speaking to anybody out there who's like me personality wise. Um, Sometimes you just need to bite your tongue and not get involved. Because believe me, I could create more conflict where somebody else has created it in trying to put that fire out. And sometimes because I've fought fire, I know you need to start backfires, to take the energy out of that initial blaze. So I could start a backfire, but that's another source of conflict. So again, know your place and don't create extra conflict, even if it could put the other stuff out if it's not your place. So those are the only two things that I would have added to that. But Rachel, I think it's awesome. And just, you know, 20 minutes, you crammed us full of some great stuff. And I look forward to the tool you're going to post on the back end too. So thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome. That's good. All right, Heidi.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. That was fantastic. I love it. I like that the conflict begins where the understanding ends. Yeah, very clear. And then the 3 points, super people. I see it that way. I don't see it that way, and I'm not quite sure what you mean. Like, boom, awesome tools. Like, and I know that some of those you could like reflect in recovery, like the 3 C's. I didn't, you can't cure it, didn't cause it, can't control it. Like some of those same things. And this all refers to a lot of the tools that I use in my coaching, right? On how to even be with yourself in some of this conflict that you have with yourself, like learning needs related feelings. It's one of the documents that my clients get in understanding. I have it specifically like understanding their emotional wounds and healing. And then they have to go through and do the needs related feelings chart. So on the left side, it's like if they're feeling overwhelmed, they have to look onto the other side to see when their needs are being met. What self regulation do they need to have? What kind of coping skills do they need to have? So that's part of like that conflict management, that it needs to start with themselves and knowing how to say, this is what I feel and this is what I need. Like that level of emotional intelligence is so huge in our health and well-being. So I really appreciate that. And that also leads into that book that you talked about, that emotion. So I use something too in coaching called the MAP Scale of Consciousness, which is by David R. Hawkins, who has a PhD, the truthhoods versus falsehoods. And the more that we can know our emotions and where they are on the scales, then we have more self-regulation and coping skills. So then these things with conflict management and the mastering of it just makes so much more sense. And I'm so excited about it.
Heidi, what's the name of that book? Can you say it one more time?
Yeah. So it's Truthhoods versus Falsehoods. It's Healing and Recovery by David R. Hawkins, MD, PhD. So everything is energy. And there is a level in our human existence where we have falsehoods and truthhoods. And the lowest level is shame, which is an energy level of 20. And then our highest level is enlightenment, which is 700 to 1,000. And as human beings, we can go in between a lot of these things. But this level of awareness, our emotional intelligence, help us then to recognize when we're in more of the falsehoods, and then how we can help to recognize that and then move forward more to our truthhoods quicker and faster. The quicker we can acknowledge, validate, show care and concern for ourselves, our feelings and our needs, and who we are and what we need, then we can live more free. So this is, I love completely, because this is absolutely my jam. However, I struggle with it because somebody crosses me and my reaction is like, we're done. We're done. So then I have tools that I've learned, like the 4th step, acknowledging my feelings and my needs. But personally, I still suffer with emoting on impact. So when somebody says something to me and it's against me, I struggle with saying, I don't see it that way, which I can't wait to get stronger with that. Or I'm not quite sure what you mean. So those are my next steps, because most of the time what Heidi does is doesn't say anything, and then I fester.
Yep.
And then we're done.
Ooh,
So
that's not
it's not good, and I'm working on it.
yeah. I remember the first time I started using those 3 tools, it was with my ex-husband because he has a tendency to just kind of like gaslight over like
Mhm.
anything. And as soon as I used that, he was like, "What is going on?" Because it was the most productive conversation we like ever had. And then I found he started using them back at me. And like, I was like, this is that, like, I think he didn't even realize he was doing it. I was like,
Yeah.
this is great. This is
Yeah. So
wow.
I love it. It's good. And because a lot of the times there's that level of anxiety that hits like right here, like, like a deer in the headlights. And I think that these tools are huge to be able to process through them. So it's really validating. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good team. Look at us. Well, all right. I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about for our lesson for today. So I think I'm going to stop the recording and then I'm going to let us pivot into any other like marketing or business things that we want to talk about that are off topic. Is that okay?
Sure.
I'm going to do that.